Greetings, friends. On Ruslan Belov's channel, we are discussing the situation in Ukraine as of January 29, 2026. The day has been packed with events, and the main question is whether a so-called energy truce exists. In recent days, a large-scale strike on the energy infrastructure of Ukraine was expected. However, on the morning of January 29th, reports began to spread regarding an alleged order to temporarily refrain from carrying out strikes on energy facilities. Russian sources do not directly confirm a truce, but they allow for the possibility of information regarding a potential pause. The picture appears contradictory. On the eve, Ukrainian authorities warned the population about the risk of a massive attack, and open sources recorded the relocation of strategic aviation, missile systems, and strike drones. An additional factor was the forecast of severe frosts, during which strikes on the energy sector could cause heavy and long-term consequences for the infrastructure. Versions have emerged suggesting that the pause may be related to possible negotiations on February 1st in the United Arab Emirates and the preparation of the parties for compromises. Western media also report that the United States is ready to provide Ukraine with security guarantees, but only after the signing of a peace agreement. Separately, a statement by Donald Trump is highlighted, in which he allegedly approached the Russian leadership with a request to refrain from strikes on Ukrainian energy for 1 week, and this request was reportedly accepted. Ukrainian media are publishing footage of the consequences of strikes on one of the Kyiv thermal power plants, linking electricity disruptions specifically to this and suggesting a possible change in Kyiv's negotiating position. Simultaneously, an idea began to be discussed within the country to mobilize holders of residence permits. Potentially, this could involve tens of thousands of people. Furthermore, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine stated a readiness to provide military assistance to Moldova regarding the Transnistria issue upon an official request from Chisinau. All these statements are viewed as elements of informational and political pressure against the backdrop of expected strikes and possible negotiations. It is necessary to clearly understand a possible subsequent strike during a period of extreme frost is capable of leaving Kyiv without heating, electricity, and water for a long time. During a thaw, pipe bursts and large-scale accidents will begin, which will result in billions in losses and a prolonged restoration of infrastructure. This is likely not about a strong argument for one side, but about a situation where the other side has almost no room for maneuver and the risk of a sharp escalation increases. The logic is simple. A powerful strike on the capital almost inevitably requires a response. If symmetrical measures or strikes deep into the enemy's territory do not produce a comparable effect, decisions may become non-standard, even extending to the involvement of other directions and regional scenarios. As for the talk of an energy truce, in essence, it changes little. Such an informational plant could have been made on any day. Its significance is rather connected with the background of the upcoming negotiations. Another option is also possible. Such statements may be part of an informational or counterintelligence game aimed at identifying possible plans for retaliatory actions and deterring them. In any case, further developments remain in question, and attention is gradually shifting to the situation on the front line. We begin the review from the northern directions. From the Sumy region, it is here today that apparently the most serious changes to the line of combat contact are being recorded. First of all, attention is focused on the northernmost Sumy bridgehead, that is, on the extreme northern part of the region. According to statements from the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and the North Group of Forces, Russian units have managed to significantly improve their positions in the area of the settlement of Belaya Beryoza. Over the past day, the map in this sector was adjusted in exactly this way, and we are already talking about the second settlement, which according to these sources is passing under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. This is already the second settlement, and the dynamics show that the formation of the bridgehead continues. Based on the current changes on the map, it can be assumed that the further advancement of Russian units may develop in an easterly direction, toward the settlements of Sidorovka, Chervenaya Zarya, and possibly Bobilevka. These three settlements are considered likely targets of subsequent advancement. From the already formed bridgehead, Movement is also possible in a northwesterly direction in the future, toward Ulanovo, Yastrubinoye, Korenyok, and Sukhodol. There are few settlements here, but in terms of area, they are significantly larger than those villages that previously, according to open sources, passed under the control of Russian troops. At the same time, it is emphasized that this bridgehead is of key importance in the conflict primarily for the Ukrainian side, since it is from this territory that a significant portion of drone launches and, if missile systems are available, strikes deep into the territory of the Russian Federation are carried out. If one follows the map updates starting from January 1st, one can notice a large number of objective control frames in which the Russian side identifies another set of small firing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine on various days and strikes them almost immediately. Footage was published of strikes on launch sites, the detection and subsequent destruction of a HIMARS launcher, a series of strikes on warehouses that the authors of the video materials call drone warehouses, as well as on antennas and various installations. Several recordings show repeated strikes on the same areas. This indicates that both Ukrainian drone operators and multiple launch rocket system crews are active in this sector. In connection with this, the bridgehead is viewed as strategically important for the Russian Federation, not so much from the perspective of resources or population, but in the context of creating safer conditions for Moscow and the Moscow agglomeration. This is precisely why movement and an increase in activity are gradually being observed in this direction. If we speak directly about the Sumy direction as a whole, high intensity of combat actions is also noted here. Russian units have already approached settlements such as Malaya Korchakovka, Novaya Sich, and Mariino. Gradually, heavy artillery, tube artillery, multiple launch rocket systems, and unmanned aerial vehicles are becoming more actively involved in the work. Strikes are being carried out on the adjacent forest tracts, and the terrain is being cleared for the purpose of further advancement of units and reaching the next defensive line, which is also considered strategically significant in the context of the overall defensive capability of the city of Sumy. Separate attention is drawn to reports from the southernmost part of the Sumy region. A number of pro-Russian experts claim a significant advance of Russian units in the area of the settlement of Lukashevka. However, at this moment, this information has no official confirmation, so additional information and possible video materials that may appear in the near future are expected. In general, if we consider the Sumy sector of the front as a whole, combat actions are unfolding almost along the entire borderline. Activity is recorded from the southernmost point, north of the settlements of Grabovskoye and Ryasnoye, further in the areas of Miropolskoye and Prokhody, then Miropolye, Yunakovka, and right up to Tyotkino. In parallel, a new front line is being formed south of the M02 highway. In fact, an absence of active combat actions is observed only in the area of the settlements of Staraya Guta and Novaya Guta. This is the extreme northern part adjacent to the large Bryansk forest massif. This sector remains the only one where no activity by either side is recorded, despite the fact that previously it was through this territory that the Ukrainian side repeatedly sent sabotage groups that advanced deep into Russian territory through the Bryansk forest. Overall, the Sumy direction remains one of the most dynamic, and over time, the intensity of events here will likely only increase. Next, attention shifts to the Northeastern Kharkiv direction, from which significant adjustments are also arriving. As of January 28th, the map looked different. However, by January 29th, an additional grey zone was added in the area of Volchansky Khutor, based on reports from pro-Russian experts. There are also reports of advancement from the direction of Mariino in a southerly direction toward a large forest massif. According to gathered information, the central part of this forest remains under the control of the Ukrainian side for now. Nevertheless, based on the configuration of the line of contact, there is a high probability of further withdrawal of Ukrainian units to the east, to the next large forest massif, known as the Seversky Donets Forest, in the area of the settlement of Bokovo, which stretches along the state border. Overall, according to the cartographic changes, it is evident that Russian units are actively advancing along the Volchya River in a northeasterly direction, likely toward the group operating in the areas of Degtyanoye, Nestanoye, Peshanoye, and other nearby settlements. The Ukrainian side is making attempts to transfer reinforcements, multiple launch rocket systems, artillery assets, and engineering equipment. However, Russian drones are active in this sector, and upon detection of any equipment or transport, strikes are delivered almost immediately. The Kupiansk direction remains without significant changes at the current moment. Next, attention shifts to the Slaviansk sector of the front. A significant number of geolocations and video materials are arriving from this direction, predominantly from the area between the settlement of Nikolaevka near the Slaviansk power plant and the city of Seversk, as well as from the area of the settlement of Sviato-Pokrovsk. Unmanned aerial vehicles are being actively used by both sides here. However, for several consecutive days, no noticeable advancement has been recorded, or it remains extremely insignificant. The reason for such stagnation lies in the fact that it is in this specific sector that one of the most fortified areas of the armed forces of Ukraine is located within the territory of the entire Sloviansk-Kramatorsk-Konstantinovka agglomeration. This stronghold area stretches along the Seversky Donets River, starting from the settlement of Krivaya Luka, encompassing Ray Alexandrovka and part of Zakotnoye. The positions are located on high ground along the riverbed, which makes advancement in this sector as difficult as possible. For this reason, adjustments to the front line here are minimal, and the main activity is reduced to the work of drone operators and precision strikes. At the same time, Russian units are attempting to develop offensive actions from the southern direction. Currently, active combat operations continue for the settlement of Nikiforovka and the adjacent forest belts. Pro-Ukrainian cartographic resources have recorded an expansion of the grey zone as far as the forest massifs located south of Fedorovka-Vtoraya and Nikiforovka. According to available data, the Russian side is striving to create conditions for the encirclement of Ukrainian strongpoints located further south, in the so-called pocket, between Nikiforovka and Privolnoye. There are forest belts and fortified positions in this area, and current actions are aimed at forming a semi-encirclement, followed by an exit to the outskirts of Fedorovka-Vtoraya, Nikiforovka, Dibrova, and Lipovka. On the Konstantinovka sector of the front, offensive actions by Russian units continue in the southern part of Konstantinovka. A number of pro-Russian cartographers report that Russian forces have established themselves on the southeastern outskirts of the settlement of Berestokh, on the basis of which an additional grey zone was added to the maps. Previously, information was also received regarding advancement in the southwestern part of the settlement. Thus, based on the aggregate data, a gradual adjustment of the front line and the formation of a kind of pincer around Berestokh can be observed. Based on this dynamics, it is not ruled out that official confirmation of control over this settlement may follow in the near future, after which attempts at further advancement toward the residential quarters of Konstantinovka itself are likely. Simultaneously, powerful airstrikes using high-explosive aerial bombs, FABs, are being delivered against the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine located further north. Published video materials demonstrate serious destruction in the western part of the settlement. Individual structures have been damaged or completely destroyed in the direction of the assumed defense breakthrough. The Dobropilia direction remains without changes at the moment. At the same time, reports are coming in of Russian units advancing in the area of the settlement of Orakov. The most noteworthy video materials in the last 24 hours are coming from the western Zaporizhia direction. No significant changes to the front line have been recorded here. However, for the first time in a long period, geolocations of strikes on the forward positions of Russian units have begun to appear. If one turns to the maps of pro-Ukrainian cartographic services, a significant part of these territories is still designated as a grey zone, or as a zone of control of the armed forces of Ukraine. Nevertheless, video footage from areas north of Novoyakovlevka, as well as from the direction of Stepnogorsk, indicates the presence of Russian units and a fairly confident hold on individual positions. In essence, such materials are used to a greater extent as visual confirmation of the current line of combat contact. This concludes the review. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and follow for further updates.